Up, gang? Welcome to the Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius and Justin. I'm so pumped to have you here with me. Now, listen, the Greatness Machine, we're about two things. Number one, people who are living their passions. And number two, those who are creating greatness in the world and doing both of these things despite the odds against them. Each episode, we're going to feature interviews with game changers, business leaders, telling us their origin stories, what made them tick, what got them to where they are now. Why? So it can help you step into your greatness within your life, your business, and your career. Occasionally, you might hear a few solo episodes from myself, moi as I say, as I leverage my 20 years of entrepreneurship as a CEO and founder to help you grow and level up in your journey to scale your life and your business. So, come be a fly on the wall, enjoy the conversation, and I'm stoked to have you here with me. Guys, welcome to the Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mershazde, and boy, do we have a special guest, a repeat guest. Justin Breen is in the house. What's up, my brother?
Hello, my friend. Great to see you again.
Man, it's been a minute. It has been a minute, and Justin Breen is back. Oh, so excited. Justin, how you doing, bro?
It was such a great experience being on the show the first time, and it really became the chapter or one of the chapters for my new book. So, most of my day is talking to visionary geniuses like you, and then you'll say a great idea, and I'm like, oh, that's a good idea, and then I'll just incorporate it into my life. So very grateful. Name Your Core Values is one of the chapters in the new book. So really appreciate that, Darius.
I'm so pumped to talk about anyone that's going to talk about how awesome I am, and at the same time, we're going to talk about how awesome you are. So listen, listeners who are new to the show, Greatness Machine, we're about two things. We're about people who are living their passions and those who are creating greatness. And really, it's, they're one and the same. It's and doing so despite the odds, right? The odds say that most people are just going to kind of meander through life. And the reality is there's folks that don't do that. There's folks that get after it, that make it happen.
Yeah.
Despite it being hard. And so I love bringing people on the show that have the passion and grit to create. And you're a creator, Justin. And so for those that did not hear our last episode, we did an episode a while back. It was actually during my book launch, or right after my book launch, I believe it was. Justin and I connected.
Yep.
Did a great show, had an amazing show with Justin. Justin is like one of the most biggest connectors I've ever met in my life, to the point where I'm like, oh, I can't handle it. It's so many connections. You're like such a maven, man. But yeah, man, we met during that time, had a great show. And, a few months ago, probably earlier in the year, I saw that Justin was, he actually named me in a post because he was writing his new book, Epic Life, that we're going to be talking about today. It's actually launched right now, and we're going to be talking about how awesome that's going. And did I get chapter number 7? Is that chapter number
7? Yeah, 7.
Oh, you did not know this? That's my favorite. I know lots of people, it's their favorite number. It is my favorite number, hands down. Like if I was Michael Jordan, my basketball shirt would say number 7. So
right.
When I saw that,
Makes
I was
sense.
like, dude, did he give me lucky number 7? Is this the gods, like the higher intelligence just dripping into both of our brains? I couldn't believe it. I was so pumped to see that I made a chapter in the book, and B, that I couldn't believe it was my favorite number. So man, so pumped to have you here. Thank you, man.
Well, thank you. And I stopped believing in randomness a long time ago. So situations like the ones you described, that happens every single day, if not multiple times a day. So I just think things are meant to be. And when you have the right mindset, it attracts the right network, and it creates those type of opportunities. So I'm glad it was chapter 7. There was no rhyme or reason for it other than I just think it was meant to be chapter 7, obviously, because it's your favorite number.
Yeah, I was like, I know I didn't tell Justin that.
No, you did not.
So Justin, like I said, we met during my last book launch. He saw that I was doing it. At that point, this was a live stream show. I was doing a ton of lives. We had a connection through Entrepreneurs Organization, and actually through a girl I went to college with at UC Davis, Chrissy Babes. And he hit me up and said, hey, I want to be on your show. And at that point, I'm like, sure, like this guy seems interesting, especially I'm a huge supporter of people who are entrepreneurs. The show is really centered around entrepreneurial type of behavior. So we came on the show, learned a lot about your story and really some of the amazing things that you're creating right in the world, which are in multi-direction at this point. I mean, a lot's changed for you since we last spoke. But yeah, when I saw that forget about me, even if I wasn't in the book, I mean, obviously put me in a book and getting on the show is going to make it a heck of a lot easier. But just knowing you and knowing the amazingness that you're doing, I was like, man, I really want to have you on the show to talk about the book. And I really want to do it during your book launch. So here we are. The book had a soft launch last week, Epic Life. Darius is in chapter 7. It's all about the core values.
And nice use of third person.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of talking about myself in the third person. I actually don't call myself Darius. I call myself the Darius. So I put it's almost like a title.
I love it. I love it.
But yeah, what I'd love to do before we get into the book, though, is, let's take a step back, because the book really came out of you stepping into this entrepreneurial journey that's now a few years old. Can you give our audience maybe some of the origin, like some of your origin story, which you have a fascinating origin story? Do you mind taking us back and kind of give us a kind of a quick and dirty origin story, and then we'll get into what you're working on right now?
Certainly a dirty start, but I think any visionary global entrepreneur, if it's not a dirty start, I mean, there's not a beautiful finish or a beautiful story. But I haven't met one entrepreneur like you that hasn't had, a start somewhat similar to mine. But Cliff Notes version, I was a journalist for 20 years. So February 10th, 2017, when I was working as a journalist in downtown Chicago as an editor reporter, had a 5-minute meeting with the company's owner and managing editor, and they proceeded to cut my job salary in half just due to cutbacks. Tried to find a full-time job over the next couple of weeks, couldn't find a job. Incorporated April 16th, 2017, with zero business background. Took 0 business classes in college, didn't even know what an entrepreneur was. I still don't know what an S Corp is. Didn't know you had to pay taxes 4 times a year, so zero background. So while I was working full-time at half the salary from approximately April 16th to 2017 to June 1st, I reached out to 5,000 people to find first 5 clients. So 1 in 1,000 said yes, 999 no's for every yes. While I was working full-time at half salary. Got 5th client on June 1st, resigned June 2nd, and then Robert Feeder, who was at the time the top media columnist in the Midwest. He actually recently retired. He did a story. I started my own firm. So that's how I started First Company.
So I didn't know that story. So while you were still working at the media publication that you were a journalist at, you behind the scenes was this cold, like emailing people, or how did
So that's a great question. The usual question I get, and this is from non-entrepreneurs, this is from humans, they go, how did you do that?
Right.
They can't understand. But people here are like, oh, okay, well, that's entrepreneur life. So what was the tactic? But so as a journalist, I had, tens of thousands of followers across a variety of platforms. So it was reaching out to them, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, but then certainly, there were emails, phone calls, text messages. And, that's just entrepreneur life. I mean, most people can't do that. That's why they're not meant to be entrepreneurs. I didn't know I was this person until going through that and then just figuring things out along the way.
Yeah, that's such entrepreneur life. I know.
Right. Yeah.
So my team's like listening to this and they're like, Darius has to do that shit all the time.
That's every day.
I'm like, do you know how many people we reach out to try to get badasses on this show? We reach out to, probably hundreds and hundreds per month.
Right.
And then every now and again, you'll appreciate this, I get a Chris Voss who's coming on in October.
Right.
Every now and again.
He wrote the foreword for my first book. Right.
Yeah. And every now and again, I get a Steve Kotler who's coming on in October.
Right.
So we're always leveling up and trying to do it. And I think that's that grind and grit mentality. That's like, hey, like, why not? If I want to grow,
why wouldn't you do that?
What's that?
Yeah. Well, why wouldn't you do? So most people, and when I say most people, I'm talking about 99.9% of the population. They live in scarcity. They don't live in abundance. They're not visionaries. And they look at things as costs, not investments. So people like you and people like me, we just live in abundance, visionary investment mindset. So of course, why wouldn't you try to get better every day or go bigger every day. I mean, I don't even understand the other side of it, but the fact is most of society lives in that. I mean, that's where they live. And that's fine, by the way, because imagine if everyone was like us, it wouldn't be.
It would suck. I would.
Oh,
how much? Yeah, the world would be way more productive and frenetic.
It'd be a complete disaster. I mean, complete disaster. And the other interesting thing is, now this doesn't always happen, but it usually does, from what I've seen. Because what my brain does is it just sees the patterns and things, and then here's the answer, here's the pattern. So just okay, there you go. But usually, but not always. And when I say usually, over 90% of the time, and there are exceptions, but usually people like us who are visionary, wackadoos, global visionaries, we usually marry a stabilizing human. Usually. Okay. So there are exceptions, but so I ask people like us, so is your spouse or, boyfriend, girlfriend, partner? Are they like a school teacher or a, social worker, pilot? My wife's a pediatrician. They're like, how did you know that? I go, well, imagine marrying yourself. It can work. I've seen it work. But often when that happens, because there's no stability, it's just a complete disaster. So an entire world of no stability would not be, would not be good.
No, that's like Jesse Itzler and Sarah Blakely. Like you're like, they got to have a whole team of people holding them together, right?
Oh, man. And God bless them. Yeah, if they don't have a team, I mean, they'd have to have a team for their team,
Yeah, because
which is fine. That's totally fine.
That's a lot. That's probably one of the reasons why, celebrity couples always break up, right? Because it's like you got there's
no stability. No, well, it's the same thing. So, I mean, really what happened, and again, the opening of your book about how you hated your company and why did you do this? Built this amazing company. Like, I hate this, So I talk to 1 to 2 folks like us every single week. Most of my days either spending time with my wife and our sons are 8 and 9. They're both 9 quick starts, and Colby, you're in 8, so they're both 9.
Wait, you did? So you've done Colby with your kids already?
You can Colby your kids, yeah. You can.
I want to Colby.
So I talked to 1 to 2 Dynamind, DYNAMYND, Dynamind, and you're supposed to do it starting in 4th grade, but I did it when they were in 1st and 2nd because I don't follow rules, but 4th grade and up. And then, so I talked to 1 to 2 people like us every single week that have let entrepreneur life destroy their family life or prevented them from having a family. I'm like, well, that's not a good idea.
Right.
So that's really what the book is about. Is like, you can build great global companies and you don't have to destroy your family.
Yeah.
You can actually have a family.
I love it, man. So, I want to tell you before we go into the book, I want to go down a different rabbit hole really quickly because I met you again through my launch, and then you came on the show. We hung out, learned a bit about your entrepreneurial story, how you left a stable job because they cut your pay, started this entrepreneurial, essentially PR business, BrEpic, that's communications, and blew that thing up. Have done really, really well with it in a really short period of time, and then amongst other businesses we can get into, but. First of all, how old are you? You're in the mid 40s, 45, 46, 44?
45, yep.
You're 45, yep, so we're just about the same age. And I saw you posted something. You're like holding, I think it was like your dad's journal from when he was in the war.
The diary,
the diary, right? And I was like, and my brain right away was like, oh, which war? And then I read further in the post and it says World War II. And I was like, whoa, wait a second. How's that math work? And so
I can tell you that.
so like, listen, if you're born in 1977, 76, 77, your father's he's a World War II veteran, meaning at the latest he was in his like late teens in like 1940, mid 40s. That means he was born in like the 20s, which means he was in his like 50s or 60s when you were born. Is that correct?
Yeah, so my father was born in 1916. He'd be 106 if he was alive now. So he was 61 when I was born. My mom was 27.
Whoa!
34-year difference. Yeah, 30. So my whole life was, this is why like my purpose of my life is to be a connecting superhero for every visionary, abundance, investment, mindset, entrepreneur, and share their stories with the world. So either spending time with my family or doing that, but it's because literally I was born with, I was just born to be this person. So that diary, that diary, I don't think you ever asked a question, but maybe you did. But so that diary is my most cherished possession. Like, I don't care about material things. You don't go into journalism for employee count, revenue. You know, that's not why you do that. But that diary means a great deal to me. And so my father came from nothing. His parents escaped the pogroms in Russia. What was Ukraine or Russia? They escaped that. And then they came here speaking no English. And then, so my dad and his three brothers came from nothing. He became a war hero, shot down 8 or 9 times in combat, many times without a parachute. I can talk about one of the diary entries if you want. So he became an attorney in the Nuremberg trials, president of an insurance company. And then later in his life was my dad. But that diary, he fought in the Battle of the Hurtgen Forest, which is one of the deadliest battles toward the end of World War II. And so I found it after he died. He died when I was 13. And I write exactly like he does. Boom, 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 boom. Just short and sweet, inform and entertain. I'm a pretty good writer. His diary is one of the best things ever written. I mean, it just is. And you know, then my mom was 27 when I was born. And so my dad in his late 50s, a drunk driver, hit my dad on the highway. The drunk driver was killed instantly, and then my dad broke every bone in his body. But you know, you don't make people like us, my dad, don't make excuses. So he was in the hospital, and then my mom was his nurse. My mom, literally, that's how they met. And then so most of my days talking to people like us, people that you know build 8-9 figure businesses, 150 employees, you know, all that. And then I still haven't met one person in my life with more hustle than my mom ever. So she's the ultimate survive and thrive. I mean, what she's been through in life, it's just so.
So your mom.
So here I am.
So your mom was in her. She was in her mid-20s, and she met your dad. She's his nurse.
Yeah.
When he literally almost dies in a car accident, they fall in love. He's like late 50s. And then they start having kids in her mid-20s, late 20s, and his
late 20s,
and his late 50s.
Yeah, I'm the oldest of 3. My youngest brother, who unfortunately passed away, but my dad was 64 when he was born. So
wow, man!
My mom was 30. Yeah, she was 30.
I'm telling you, I saw that, and I was like, "How's that work?" And I was like, "I'm like, did Justin's dad marry a really young girl? And I never asked you about it, but this is again after you were on the show. I saw you post about the diary, and I started, and I'm super. My number 5 core value is curiosity. So
yeah, well, you're a 6 fact finder, so it makes sense.
Right. And so when a friend of mine's talking about his dad's World War II journal, and he's my age, I'm like, how's that supposed to work? So
do the math.
so dude, you were 13 when your dad passed away. That's pretty. I was 22 when my dad passed away, which is young. I mean, how was that for you and your family?
Well, there's a couple things for that. One, I'm really sorry about your dad. What I've learned with that is for a man, a boy, what I've learned is no matter what age you are, if you're close to your dad, and most are, that's the worst. I mean, with the exception of maybe losing a child, which I hope that never happens, but obviously that's the worst. And there's been an interesting thing with that. One, because I have the diary, and again, like, that's my litmus test. You get shot down without a parachute, you get back in the plane. So if someone makes an excuse, I just don't understand that. And then it's, because I write just like him, it's just the gift that never stops. And I feel like he's still alive. He's still alive, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm so close with my children. Because I know what it's like not to have a dad around, and I'm not gonna torch my family for this life. I won't do it. Because my dad was a great dad, not a good dad, great dad. There's a difference there. So there's that. Now here are the other 2 interesting things. One, we live 2 or 3 blocks from the hospital where I last saw my dad.
Wow.
After he had his heart attack, and he was barely alive. He stayed alive to say goodbye to my brothers and I. So we're 3 blocks from there. So I run by it literally 6 days a week and probably drive by it every day for the last 7 years. And then my oldest son, who's 9, his travel soccer team practices and plays at my junior high's soccer field. And the junior high is where I was pulled out of class to go to the hospital.
Wow.
So there's constant reminders, both of the amazing dad that my dad was, and how he was a writer and a hero, and like no excuses, like none. And my kids are exactly like that. They're really badass. But then also constant reminders of that terrible day. I mean, constant reminders. So I guess I look at that as a positive thing because I'm very thankful to have this great life with my kids and wife. I mean, I'm very thankful for that.
I love that, man. Thank you for sharing that. I know that's not, you didn't come on the show to share that, but it was something that, again, us having like built a relationship over the last couple of years, it was something I noticed. I'm like, oh, I have to ask Justin about this.
Yeah.
So, I want to move back to the business thing. So, over the last 2 years, you started BrEpic Communications. You guys also, you have BrEpic Network, and and I know you're involved with Abundance 360, Strategic Coach. Tell us some of the other stuff you're working on, because you're working on a lot of different things right now.
Okay, that does seem like a lot, right? It's actually not. I'm just so focused. I'm so focused on spending time with my family and then building a global network every single day. So, 10X, a lot of folks talk about 10X, and that's revenue or office space or employee count. It's material things. I only really care about 2 things in a 10X fashion, and only ask myself 2 questions every day that really matter. This other stuff's great, but the only 2 questions that really matter are, 1, did I have at least one good experience that day with my family? And then 2, did network grow on a global level? And so certainly every day, the answer to the first question is yes. And certainly Monday through Friday, I don't really do anything on the weekend, but if, there's a chance that I talk to someone or someone likes something on social media. So the answer to the second question is yes as well. The network grows. And what I've seen is the byproduct of everything else kind of takes care of itself. And then again, I'm a simplifier into patterns. So the first company started 5+ years ago now with zero business background. I was a journalist for 20 years, created an entire business model based on how PR firms annoyed me for 20 years. So saw a problem, created a solution, problem solved, successful global company. The newer company, which launched this year, I'm in Chicago. My partner, who's also in Strategic Coach 10X, he's in San Francisco. We've met one time in person, only once. So we were annoyed by platforms that let everyone in, because at the highest level, people like us don't, you reach out to 150 people to get one Steven Kotler. You don't want to do that. You just want Steven Kotler. So we essentially created LinkedIn without the BS, high price point, invite only connectivity platform.
Nice.
And I like LinkedIn. It's just there's a lot of BS on it. So high price point, invite only connectivity platform. Very grateful for that. And then, spend time in 2 of the top entrepreneurial groups in the world. One is Strategic Coach 10X with Dan Sullivan. And then the other is Abundance 360 Summit with Peter Diamandis. And I'm incredibly grateful he wrote the foreword for my new book. So that's really, that might sound like a lot, but it's really not. It's just really focused on family and network.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, and I think it depends. Like I heard that, and I heard that you're hyper focused. But you're
that's correct.
Yeah. As Naval Ravikant says, you're using your leverage to get more out of what what you have, right? And leverage is one of the biggest keys to success, as we know. Is how can I leverage the assets I've built? If I build this communication platform, how can I leverage my network? How can I leverage, align them together where I'm getting, as my friend says, habit stacking, right? Getting more out of the same.
Darius, that's brilliant. That's one of the most brilliant things. That might be a chapter for the third book. Because what happens is I'm very low in ideation, and the strength finders, there's 30 Gallup's strength finders. There's 34 of them. I'm 32. I'm guessing you're top 5.
I haven't taken it Gallup in about 9 years, but it was 6 last time I looked. I can look right now.
Okay, well, that's all right. So I'm 32.
Potato. I say top 10 is who you are.
Yeah, that is right. Yeah, so that you remember that, that's good. But what it is like the new company is just technology for my brain. What I'm already doing, it's just connections for anything. Like PR is connections for media. This is connections for anything. So you leverage the connections for PR. You just create a SaaS platform for it. That's literally all it is. And so this is what happens with my brain and how I learn. So again, most of my days talking to people like you, and since I'm so low in ideation, I need ideators like you to give me the ideas. But if I get a good idea from someone like you, my top three, actually, I'll give you the top five because you're a high fact finder. The top five are activator, maximizer, achiever, competition, even though there is no more competition anymore, it's all collaboration. And 5 is responsibility. Because you gave me your 6th, my 6th is self-assurance, so no imposter syndrome.
Oh wow, so you're orange purple.
It's that you are definitely you might even be a 7 or 8 fact finder, but the so it's all result. So like ideator, you're probably like an ideator futurist with like an achiever.
Yeah, my number one strength is achiever. But for people, for listeners who don't know what we're talking about, go to Gallup Strength Finder and pull your strengths. It is one of the coolest tools out there.
What are your top 5, Darius?
My number 1 strength is achiever. My number 2 strength is communication, which obviously is this show. My number 3 is woo, winning others over.
Yep.
My number 4, that's 3. 4 is learner, and 5 is individualization. So I got a little bit. That's why I like to learn about the individual so much, because I'm learning about what makes you unique and special. That's why I love doing the show, because I get to meet people.
Well, you'll appreciate this. Yeah. You'll appreciate this. So most that, and by the way, this is chapter 2 in the book. You'll really like that one, even though it's not chapter 7. You like the most. Chapter 2 is recognizing the patterns. So most of my day, again, talking to top entrepreneurs in the world. So here's the pattern for top entrepreneur in the world that I've seen over and over and over and over again. So 1 is Kolbe, Kolbe. It's not your personality. It's how your brain takes action. And so the overwhelming majority, 95% plus of the folks I talk to are at least an 8 quick start like you. You're an 8 quick start. Yep. I'm a 7. So a true visionary is an 8, 9, or 10. Every now and then, because I was talking to Gino Wickman and the head of Kolbe, Amy Brusky, about this, every now and then a 7 or lower quick start, like me, will slip into that visionary role, but they have to have incredibly high IQ or EQ. So 1, that was nice to hear that. 2, that's if you're under an 8 quick start, almost certainly you will not be a visionary. There are exceptions like me. My partner, by the way, he's a 9 quick start. Okay, so that's 1. 2, in strength finders, definitely over 95%. The overwhelming majority of the folks I talk to are high in ideation and or futuristic. And so they're off in idea land, wherever that is. But they have a mix of activator, maximizer, or achiever in there. So they'll actually do something about it now. Because if you are off in idea land and you don't want to achieve, that is
I call it ideation purgatory.
Yeah. That's another good one. Perfect. Yeah. Ideation purgatory. And I don't talk to ideator purgatorists because
it sucks.
Those are torture people and they're not going to do anything. Okay. So again, I'm low in ideation, low in futuristic, but if I talk to an ideator who's actually will do something about it now, I will simplify them. Boom, 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 boom. And they're very thankful for me. I'm very thankful for them. Here's the third one. I don't know if we talked about this the last time, but you're a high fact finder, so you'll probably take this and I'll email it to you if you want me to. It's called the PRINT, PRINT test. It's your unconscious motivators. So people see the tip of the iceberg, but they don't see under. They don't see under.
Yeah. You did mention this last time we were on the show.
I did. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Did you take it?
No. I need to though. Print.
Yeah. Okay. So
sorry.
Yeah,
I was probably like burnt on assessments.
Okay. Well, this is what I've seen is the missing link, but the
print. Okay.
Yeah, it's your unconscious motivator. So I'm an 8-3. 8 is to be strong and self-reliant, and 3 is to succeed and achieve. I would be flat. The most of the people I talk to are 8-3s or 3-8s. My partner, Mark Fujiwara, he's a 3-8. Succeed and achieve, strong and self-reliant. If you are not an 8-3 or at least have one of those two, you're an achiever, so you're probably a 3-8. You're probably a 3-8 like Mark.
I'll take that.
Maybe, yeah, you'll take.
I'll take it.
So
Yeah, I'll take it, and I'll send you the results. I'll actually do it today. I will promise you on that.
You're gonna do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it.
Do you need me to re-email that?
I will do it when we get off the air and email it over to you, and then we can have a side conversation on this. Does that work?
Yo, absolutely. Yeah, of course. Because the strategic coach has 3 levels. The one, again, just to land the plane, the level I'm at is 25K a year US dollars. I'd say it's 75, 80% true global entrepreneurs like you. There's still some business owners, but they're high level business owners. And then the free zone level, that's 50K a year US. I'm guessing that's 100% entrepreneurs. The overwhelming majority of the folks in free zone are 8.3s or 3.8s because they don't overthink anything. They don't feel any, they feel something, but it's like, and then so again, people like us usually marry stabilizing humans. My wife is a 2.6 print. So 2 is to be needed and appreciated, and 6 is to feel safe and secure.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, you just described me. That's my wife.
Can you imagine? That would not be good for an entrepreneur. Yeah. But so that's why it balances out. So if you're a 2.6 global entrepreneur, that would be incredible to me. That'd be amazing.
I love that.
I don't see that happening. But
all right, I'm going to check that out. I want to move over to the new book. So this is your second book. The first book was BrEpic, right? Excuse me,
Epic Business. Epic Business.
Epic Business. Excuse me. So Epic Business was the first book, and now you have since gone on to write Epic Life, which just launched. Peter Diamandis, founder of Abundance 360, one of the founders of X Prize.
X Prize, Singularity University.
Yeah, Singularity University.
Top entrepreneurs. Yeah,
he's like one of the top futurists in the world. Anyone that doesn't know Peter Diamandis needs to pull their head out of the sand. Him and Jeff, what's his name? The guy he was the head futurist at Google. Him and that gentleman, I believe, were the 2 founders of Singularity, right? So
I did not know that.
I believe so. I could have that wrong, but he's obviously a big deal. And so first of all, how did you build the relationship with Peter?
So I'm in Abundance 360 Summit. Peter is also in Strategic Coach. So we talk from time to time in that. And, again, most of my days talking to people like you, and people like you would love Abundance 360. So I've introduced a lot of folks to Abundance 360. I think that one's 25K a year.
Yeah, that's what it was. I spoke to them. That's what it was.
You did speak. Okay. Yeah. There's a higher price point for, I think, more access, which I might join that too. But when it came, so again, I'm a simplifier, right? So for this book, it was very important to have a noteworthy person do the forward. So for the first book, Chris Voss did the forward. He's Never Split the Difference. That's one of the top business books, if you want to call it that, in the last 20 years. I would say it's more of a life book. So he did the forward for the first, and then Peter graciously said he would do the forward for this one. So you got Peter, big name to do the book. Chris Voss, who I would, one of my favorite books is Never Split the Difference. And to your point, it is a life book on how do you get people to influence people to get what you want, right? That's essentially what it is through negotiation. And he's going to be he's a guest that's coming on the show. Cross my fingers. He's booked. Well, hopefully he makes it. But, Peter, obviously you built a relationship with him. Sounds like you did it through Strategic Coach and through Abundance 360. Well, look, and even despite that, maybe he did it as a favor, but my guess is he did it because he thinks you're an incredible human and wanted to support the work you're doing. What do you think was the biggest reason he chose to do the forward for the book? No one's ever asked me that, and it's a really good question because he doesn't. I've looked it up. He doesn't really do forwards for a lot of people, if anyone. What I've thought about this. He has 2 twin boys who are 9 or 10. Peter's 60, so he had his children when he was 50 or 49. And I always tell him when I see him, whether it's directly or in a chat, he always thanks his family during Abundance 360. He doesn't forget. And someone with that type of brain, his IQ has to, I mean, I don't know what his IQ is, but I'm guessing it's, 180 to 200, if not higher than that. People like that many times forget their family completely. And he always thanks them. He always thanks his mom. He always talks about his children. And maybe because we were on a Zoom call once, like a breakout. We were on a breakout in Strategic Coach. And so I don't know if this answers your question, but this is what I think. This is how my brain works. So we were on a Zoom call, and then I changed it from the laptop to my cell phone because I was dropping my kids off at school, which is like 2-minute drive away. And so like they saw me change that and then drop the kids off. The video is still on. And then I came back, turned off that, and then came back to the laptop. And Peter's like, how did you do that?
You're like,
so maybe the fact that
very stealth.
It was hilarious. But I mean, I do think in some way it's because we do talk about our children. It'll be really interesting to see what Peter's kids do, his sons do. It'll be interesting to see what my kids, I don't know if he's Colby'd his kids, but I'm guessing they're very high quick starts. I'd be shocked if they weren't.
That's interesting. So you, so let's talk about the book, like Epic Life, big book, chapter 7's a must read, but walk us through. if listeners, if anything, besides buying my book, if you don't want to buy my book, buy his book. Because as I know a bunch of the author, I know a bunch of the people that you cite in the book. It's like a laundry list of badasses, and really interesting people, dynamic people. So yeah, tell us what was the premise on wanting to write this book?
Yeah, again, I'm a simplifier into patterns. And so the first book was people kept asking, how did you build a global company with zero business background in 2 years where you only partner with a certain type of person? I'm like, oh, well, here you go, right? So that's what the first one was. And then the second one, again, when you talk to someone like us 1 to 2 times a week that have destroyed their family life or never had a family because of this life, I'm like, well, that's it's the same formula. See a problem, that's a problem, create solution, book, problem solved, successful global company. So currently, in case anyone cares, it's the number 1 selling book and on all of Kindle and all of Amazon right now.
Wow.
I'll timestamp this.
Wow.
August
number 1 for all Kindle?
All Kindle on Amazon. Yeah. So it's not like this obscure category that's, which is fine, by the way. It's fine. But so it's number 1 on all of Kindle.
That's insane. So the book had a soft launch last week. This is the big launch week.
This is the big launch.
And so trying to solve the problem of how do I help give advice to global entrepreneurs or to entrepreneurs about how do you not destroy your family? How do you not destroy your personal life? How do you live the life you want to live? Epic life, if you will, through the lens of different thought leaders. Yeah, walk us through kind of the format of the book.
Yeah, so I talked to someone like you who says, what are your core values? I'm like, that's a good idea. I'll, activate, maximize, achieve that into my life and write about it. And so each one of those, there's 30 chapters. Find your core values is chapter 7. The cream rises to the top is chapter 1. That's what my dad said, age 5 to 13. He would say that every day, the cream rises to the top. So my firm's partner only with the cream that rises to the top, or folks that won't make an excuse. They'll just make the investment. They'll get back into the plane without a parachute, because that's what separates entrepreneurs from humans, consultants, business owners. They just don't make excuses. And so the other thing that I keep hearing from people like us, they say it a lot actually, when because they'll be like, oh, we talk about things we're up to. And, a lot of them will be like, oh yeah, I just, sold my company for 50 million, or, hey, I just got to 200 employees, just opening up an office, in LA or something. And then they'll get to me. I'll be like, oh, yeah, I just took my sons on a week-long baseball trip across the Midwest. We went to 5 games in 5 days. Or, oh, gone out with my wife every Wednesday for lunch for the past couple of years. And the answer is, oh, you're doing that right. You're doing things right. I'm like, oh, well, okay, well, here's how to do it right, I guess. Because I do think people like us, they do want to put their families first. They do want to have meaningful relationships. I don't think they know how. A lot of folks like us don't know how to do it. So, and then, folks starting their companies, they might think that they have to just abandon their family or not spend time with them to start something. And you don't have to do that. You don't. You can actually prioritize your family and blend it into what you're building.
You want to know what
I think it's a good message. Yeah.
You know what I think the problem is, and I think that your book's going to do a really good, give a really good opportunity to solve the problem that you're solving is I think that hustle culture is over celebrated. I think
100%.
Yeah,
that's what you see on social media. You see all this stuff.
Hustle culture is over celebrated. I think that running a business is hard until you stabilize it generally, or
yes.
For most people. I mean, like sometimes people get it right out of the gates, but that's, I would not bet any business on that. Right. I would bet that you're going to get it wrong out of the gates, and through effort and iteration, you'll figure it out. That's a bet I'll make 100 times out of 100 on the right person. But I think hustle culture is over celebrated. I think that when you get around a bunch of entrepreneurs, or business people or achievers, generally speaking, people have a chip on their shoulder. They want to prove value. They want to prove that they're
100%.
good. They want to prove that they're not.
Yep.
Look, dude, most entrepreneurs, and I mean, at least I fell into this category, I'm pretty unemployable, man. Like nobody, like I'm not, although I'm a good worker, I don't want to be told what to do. I don't want to have rules. I just want to go and crush it and get out of my way. Right. And so that attitude is the achiever, competitor, warrior. That person wants to go.
That's a 3/8 print.
What's that?
Yeah. That's a 3/8 print. You're a 3/8.
Right. So I call that the warrior, right? And I think a lot of entrepreneurs have that warrior spirit. And so I got that warrior spirit. The warrior is not like, but hold on, I got to go pet my dog and go hang out with my family. Now, I'm not saying that they shouldn't do that. I'm saying that's not top of mind. And then you get them around a bunch of other warriors, and they get adrenaline when they win. They get all these affirmations of how great they are, and then they have to stop what they're doing to go and be in an area where they're not a warrior, where they're taking care of the family, taking care of themselves.
Yes. And
I think, at least I'm actually telling you my story right now, because I struggled with this for
this is what I hear. This is what I hear every day.
Yeah, I struggled with this for a really long time. I still struggle with it to a certain degree. So I'm like, fuck it. I'm just going to go do what I'm good at. Right. There's this family thing. I'm not good at it, and I feel bored, and I'm not getting the adrenaline. So I'm going to go win in business because I could do that. And last but not least, I'm going to say this. I think most entrepreneurs, there's a saying in business I love, which is revenue is vanity and profit is sanity. And I think that, again, you have the Inc. magazines. Oh, are you top? I was number 40 in Inc. 5000.
God, seen a lot of those lately.
Right. Oh, top 500, top 5,000, whatever. They're bragging about your revenue growth. They're not bragging about your profit growth. Right.
Revenue is meaningless. It's a meaningless term to me, driven by ego. It's complete nonsense.
I've heard, and people tell me this all the time. They're like, oh my God, Darius, we're up to 60 employees. I'm like, that sounds like a lot of fucking work.
That sounds like a horrible nightmare.
And so I'm like, I want a business that prints money and has the least amount of headaches, so I can spend the most amount of time doing what I love. Right. It took me 20 plus years to figure that out.
You had to learn that through hating your company and then wondering why you did this.
Right, exactly. And so what I want to say is, what the cool thing about your book, and I was listening to, there's a book that's out now, Ed Milet's book, Power of One More. Right.
Power of One More.
Yeah, it's a good book. But he was talking to Bradley, who's Dropping Bombs Bradley. I don't know if you know him, but he was on his show, and I've since befriended Brad, and they're talking about proximity, right? And when you start to get proximity, which is I'm around people doing the things I want or having the life I want, it becomes more of a known. So that proximity makes it like, oh, so they were talking about Ed, for example. Ed's around a bunch of billionaires, so he has proximity to billionaires. So being a billionaire is not like this like foreign thing to him now. It's like, oh, that's what it looks like. Right. And so what I think is cool about your book is you're providing proximity towards around people that have figured out ways to live the best life. Right.
Yes.
And you could get proximity in two ways. I could get it by actually hanging out with the person, or I could get it by reading the word of the person. Right. That's the easiest way to reach mentors is to pick up a book. That's the way I see it.
Right.
So I don't need to like
one of the chapters is the process is the shortcut. So I've just shortcutted it. 119 pages to shortcut, spending, as a journalist, 20 years interviewing top people on planet, and now 5+ years talking to top people on planet. So here's your 119 page, hour read shortcut if you want to do it that way. But here's what you just said about the entrepreneurs is it's really fascinating. I think this will be a helpful dovetail. Two things for that. One of my friends, Pete Kofod, who's also in the book, but not for this reason. We were talking the other day about a similar thing to what you were just talking about how entrepreneurs, they're just not comfortable being in family situations. So I'm like, why do you think that is? And he's like, well, so most people, and this is not a negative, this is just how it is. He's like, most people are sheep. 99% of the world are sheep. And then there's the entrepreneurs who are the sheepdogs, the sheep herding dogs. And like, so the sheepdogs, the people like us, we are protecting the sheep from the wolves, from the true enemies of the world. And I looked up a scientific Science Daily article about what the sheepdog's roles are. And the sheepdog, or if in this case a visionary, their role is they only have two roles. One is to keep the sheep in line, and two is to push them forward. So that's the role of visionary: keep them in line, push them forward. So when a sheepdog gets around a sheep, most sheepdogs, they marry stabilizing humans. They marry sheep. So being something other than a sheepdog is very hard. So this is like floating around up here thinking, but I think it's very similar to what you just said. So that's one. And again, two, my brain turns everything into patterns. So I have not met one entrepreneur. I'm not talking about business owners. I'm not talking about consultants. I'm not talking about humans, employees. I have not met one entrepreneur at the highest level, global level, that has not overcome at least one of the following four things, most are two or three, and has gotten up higher on the food chain. It's a lot of all fours. It's definitely 3 of 4, and then a lot of all fours.
Wait, hold on.
Here are the four things.
I want to see how many of them I check.
You're at least 3. I'm going to guess you're all 4.
All right, I'm going to go.
I'd be shocked if you weren't all 4.
I'm going to do a thumb up
okay.
if I have any of these.
Everyone, okay, so this is hilarious. You actually activated Achieved before I even did it, because I do this and everyone's like, nod, yes, check, check, check. Okay, so here's what separates entrepreneurs. Oh, you already nod. So here's one. Bankruptcy or potential bankruptcy. 2, depression. 3, the highest level of anxiety you can imagine. And 4, likely and or possible traumatic experiences as a child or young adult.
Yeah.
So
3. Right. I'm going to give myself
3.
Like
3.5.
I stopped my company from going bankrupt, but it almost went bankrupt.
Right. That counts.
So I'm 4 for 4 big time on all of them.
You're 4. So you get higher up. So when I first started, again, like what I've learned about my brain, I know the answer to things. So here's the answer. This is the pattern. So starting first company early on, because I was still talking to business owners, it was like 1 or 2, maybe a 3 out of 4. There were not all 4s. As it's gotten up higher, it's all 3 is like the minimum now, and then it's mostly all 4s. I mean, so what does that mean? So entrepreneurs like that, I'm 3 of the 4. I haven't had to worry about bankruptcy or potential bankruptcy. Knock on wood, I don't think I will, but hopefully not. Entrepreneurs like us, or let's start with regular humans, business owners, consultants, they use those things as excuses. Entrepreneurs like us, motivation, achiever, fuel. That's what separates entrepreneurs like us. So the dovetail for that negatively, unfortunately, is that people like us use that to achieve through revenue, Inc. 5000, whatever that is. And many times, not always, they just bypass family or not have a family. That's what it is.
Yeah, also I think one part of that, I'm actually working with this really amazing therapist in Chicago on this specific issue. We made some amazing headway. But what I think is when you say the first one is more of a reaction to starting a company, right? Like if you build it something big enough that's wobbly because when you start something from nothing and it grows big, like it's not necessarily funded well enough, and so the chance of blowing up is just high, right? But the other three, childhood trauma, what was the other two? Depression, and what was the third one?
Highest level of anxiety you can imagine.
Super high anxiety, which I think are kind of a byproduct of the other two.
Yes.
I think I believe that this is, I just got done watching The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, and I think like he's like probably one of the best examples of what we're talking about right now.
100%.
Right. It comes down to self-worth. And I think that a lot of people have this chip on their shoulder of like, I'm going to show the world that I'm super valuable.
Yes.
Better believe it. And it becomes this like deep, and I actually didn't realize that was even, I mean, it was so, because I don't think most people, you got to do the work to even see if that's there, because it hides itself very well. And if you have that self-worth issue, like for me, the way I learned it was the only thing that would calm me down was success and achievement. That's the only, and the way because the minute I would give myself that, like, it was like almost like an opiate, like financial opiate.
Yes. Oh my God. This is incredible. Dopamine Nation. I'm reading it now. Dopamine Nation. You will love that.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's dopamine. That's what it is.
You get that dopamine hit, right? And so I want to read that book. That's what it is. I want to throw that on my list.
Dopamine Nation. So good. So good.
So to your point, they get the dopamine hit. Your body starts to memorize that emotion. It gets addicted to that dopamine. And when you don't get it, you start to feel bored, depressed, anxious, all those things. So I go to want more dopamine, right? And I think the foundation of that is the child trauma is around self-worth. It's like, man,
100%.
I want my parents to think I'm great, and they don't for whatever reason, or I don't think they do for whatever reason. And then that wounded child carries on into adulthood, and they're like, I'm going to prove to the world that I'm fucking meaningful.
100%.
And the bigger the accomplishment, dude, last night I was watching the Tiger Woods documentary. Holy shit. You want to see childhood craziness like that.
I mean, the RV trailer next to the green.
Yeah, crazy, man. Him having to prove that, like to set that expectation on a kid, it's just crazy, right? Like,
well, more that like he's putting as a child, and his dad and his friend having like random women go into a trailer right next to the green.
Oh yeah. I just heard.
I mean,
that's around like not showing him that his mother was like the relationship manager.
Yeah,
right?
and here's because man, this is I don't say this lightly. This is one of the better conversations I've ever had, regardless of whether it's recorded or not. I really mean that. So here's what entrepreneurs are. Okay, this is what and I'll say we here. We are the most damaged people, the most damaged with the best coping skills. That is what entrepreneurs are. But those coping skills, again, not always, many times they cope by creating company.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know a lot of people that cope with that, and then they go do shit tons of drugs and party and sex and cheat on everybody because.
Well, right. That's right. Yeah. So, and I'm saying you don't have to. Yeah, it's that's why Dopamine Nation is so good, because entrepreneurship is addiction. That's what that's what it is. It's like, keep getting bigger, keep getting bigger, keep getting bigger. And while I totally understand that and appreciate that, I've learned, like the end of 2018, I'd made more money in 1 year than I ever thought possible. Again, you don't go into journalism for that. You know,
right.
I mean, some journalists do, but most of them don't.
Right.
And I'd never been more miserable in my life. So that wasn't even 2 years into the business, the first one. So I'm actually glad I went through that, because I learned that's not what makes me happy. I'm glad I didn't learn that now or 10 years from now. I learned it pretty quickly. And so I'm like, that's not the right math. So I'm like, what actually does make me happy? Spending time with my family, talking to cool people like you. And so that's, fishing, having activity. So that's what makes me happy.
That's awesome.
So this other stuff's fine, but that's not really what makes me happy.
You know, it's funny, Justin. I also think like what we're touching on here is where is it coming from? Is it coming from like, and I'm reading this really cool book called Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And it talks about different frequencies, right? And the lower frequencies are going to be fear and greed and
Yes.
lack, living in the lack, and higher frequencies are going to be gratitude and love. And are you building a business? Are you building a life based off the higher frequencies, or is it because I'm not good enough and I'm going to show everybody and fuck them, I'm going to win, right? and so I think that a lot of us as wounded, kids or adults or whatever who go on to build these companies, as you say, they hit these 4 areas where they have anxiety and depressions and self-worth issues and trauma and they build, they're trying to prove that they're worth something. That all comes from this lower frequency, like I'm going to show everybody, and dude, that's that warrior spirit. But what got you here, as Marshall Goldsmith says, what got you here won't get you there. And what I heard you just say again is like, no, man, I got there in 2018. I was grinding and but I wasn't operating in these higher frequencies of love and gratitude and joy. And how can I have it both ways? And what I'm picking up is your book's like, hey, you don't have to lose one for the other. You can have it both ways. Right. In
fact, you just connect them. You just connect them. So like, that was very high level content you just put up there. But like the conversations we have in our family, with my sons, again, they've taken their Colby already. So we talk about visionaries, and we talk about creating an entrepreneur life where you don't destroy your family. We talk about simplifiers versus multipliers. They, not always, but sometimes they sit on the strategic coach or Abundance 360 calls with me. We talk about things that most families never would. I mean, they don't even know this world exists. I take them on this baseball trip around the Midwest to all these games. It was just me and them, and we saw the country and saw how towns, small towns, major cities interacted with people. And that's how that to me is a real life. I mean, and it's just so much, I'm just so grateful for that. And again, I don't believe in randomness. One of the chapters in the book is grateful journal. So, the first thing I do every day is a grateful journal to my wife, what I'm grateful for her the previous 24 hours. Because she needs to be needed and appreciated. And the most important thing for her is for someone to say thank you to her.
Yeah.
So and then, grateful journal on LinkedIn every Monday through Friday. I'll include this interview in that. And then, again, run 6 days a week, no matter the weather conditions outside. So we live in Chicago. It gets cold, hot, rainy, windy, all that. So, run outside. And then I listen to shows like these, Feeding with Gratitude. And to simplify all that, when you're constantly grateful, it's hard to be ungrateful.
Yeah.
I mean, it does sink in, but if you're constantly grateful, it's hard to be ungrateful, and it attracts other people living in gratitude. It attracts the higher level of, man, that's brilliant what you said. It attracts the higher level of frequency. That's what wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Man,
I take no credit. This is all. This is this great book I'm reading, Supernatural. But
have you ever done your IQ?
Yeah, I did it like when I was like in 4th grade. Are
you like 150 or 160?
I don't. My mom wouldn't tell me what it was. I should
try to find that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I have like I think I have a pretty good IQ, but I should. Can
I give you a high fact finder on that one?
Sure.
Just because if you can get that score, let me know what it is, and the print, by the way. Here's my follow through kicking in. So, and this will be helpful to your listeners too. So 140 IQ and above is genius. I'm gonna guess you're at least 145. At least.
I'll take it. I don't need to take the test.
No, I'd be surprised if you weren't. I mean, just the way you talk, and what you've built, and I'd be very surprised. So that's 1% of the population. So I am 139, right on the border. I'm actually glad it's not too much higher than that, because I talked to like 160s, 170s, and they're geniuses, but they can't. There's no there's very little human concept at all.
Yeah, it can be a little painful.
It's painful. They can't, and that's their brain. So I've literally, like, what it is I'm a bridge between geniuses and humans. Like, that's literally
Nice.
what my IQ is. But I'd be shocked if you weren't over 140.
All right, I'll take my
At
IQ.
least right there.
For the listeners in the show, I won't. If it's below 140, I won't tell anybody. No, no.
I don't see how it could. I mean, because what entrepreneurs are, they're not necessarily like, when I say entrepreneur, like true visionary global, they're not necessarily book smart. Like with PR firm, a lot of the folks that my firms are partnered with, they barely graduated high school or even barely went to college.
Yeah.
But that's fine. But they're like incredibly high intellect, like off the charts intellect.
Yeah, it's funny. Like my brother, I have a twin brother who's ADHD, learning disabilities, but he's like, he's not very. I mean, he has a tough time. Like he can read, obviously, but he struggles because of these different like learning disabilities.
Right.
My dad.
Most of the people I talk to have ADD, so that's not a disorder, by the way. It's a sign of genius. It's just diagnosed by humans that they don't. And then my wife, who is a doctor, a pediatrician, so she doesn't have the ability to diagnose me with this, but she thinks I'm somewhere on the like minor Asperger's.
Oh,
minor, really? Not, yeah. And so it's really, because I have these conversations with people like you, and they're like, oh, it's like ADD visionary partners with an Asperger's, like minor Asperger's person who like simplifies and then executes.
Interesting.
It's really
interesting.
Yeah, it's super interesting.
Interesting. Okay. So look, I'm going to take my print. I'm going to take my IQ test. So I want to, unfortunately, we're getting near the end of the show here. Let me ask you a question. I got one question for you, and then let's promote the hell out of your book so you can make the Wall Street Journal bestseller that you're probably going to make here in a hot minute. What's your favorite chapter in the book and why?
I really appreciate you asking that. There is a reason why. It's definitely chapter 1. The cream rises to the top. Again, I think most children, most sons have really good relationships with their father. My father was an extraordinary human being in every way. But most important, he was the greatest dad. Just the greatest. He was just, because he was essentially retired, and while my mom was out hustling in a good way, he raised us. And to have a dad like that, who, despite age, was like a kid, like a little kid, like would play basketball and football and all sorts of stuff with us. It was just a wonderful, it's still just a wonderful blessing. And I hope I'm doing a good job of being a dad. I know he's watching in some capacity. So I hope he's proud that, I'm trying to be as good of a dad as he was.
I love that, man. So look, if you're out there, you want to learn how to live an epic life, I'm going to tell you, I've watched a ton of the people. I know a lot of the people that are in that book. And a lot of people are people that I find to be just some of the more profound, interesting people that are probably on the planet right now. So you got to go out there. The fact that you compiled it into a book, you said it's 110 pages, so it's an easy read. Anyone can knock that out real quick. And this is, again, going back to what we were talking about earlier. The way at least the way I believe greatness happens is through leveraging one's talents and resources to create more of what they want, right? And it sounds like your book. And how many chapters is your book? It's like 29.
30.
Yeah, 30 chapters of goodness. And man, I am just so pumped, that you thought of me to put me in the book, and whether I was in the book or not, you would have been on the show promoting the book. But I'm honored and grateful to have met you and to have an impact where you felt like it was worth sharing to others, and the fact that you gathered 29 other thought leaders to share the greatest things you've ever learned to the world. So man, that's greatness if I've ever seen it before, and much appreciated to you for doing that, Justin.
You're welcome, and incredibly grateful for being on the show. And I'll listen to this when I'll re-listen to this, and I'm guessing there'll be a good chapter of material from just this interview, from the things you've said. So, book 3 will have you again, I'm guessing.
Well, I'll be honored again. And so, everyone, Epic Life. You can also get his other book, Epic Business. We'll put this all in the show notes, but it's out there. It's live. It's #1 on Kindle in the whole country on Amazon right now. Best-selling book, just kicking ass, taking names. Man, Justin, Breen, you are a champion. You are a soldier, and you are a badass. And I appreciate you, my brother. And I'm really looking forward to all the great work that you are doing and will continue to do.
Thank you, my friend.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. If you love this episode, please share it, like us, give us a review, and go buy the book, Epic Life by Justin Breen. Peace out. We love you. You are listening to The Greatness Machine, and that's a wrap for today. Listen, if you love what you heard, subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform that you're tuning in on so that you don't miss any of our future episodes. We have tons of great people coming on, and we're stoked to have you here to enjoy it with us. Leave us a review. Tell us what you love most about this particular episode. We love getting the reviews. We love to see what you guys love most. And if this particular episode, made you think of someone who's leveling up in their business and in their life, print screen, share it with them. Leaders are the best givers. And after all, we're all here to support and grow with each other. And in case you want to see some of the fun behind the scenes shots or some of the things that we're doing, I'm actually writing about this in my weekly newsletter. Go to www.therealdarius.com and subscribe to my newsletter. We're talking about fun things like business and life and mindfulness and cryptocurrencies and gosh, I don't even know, everything and anything, but it's tons of fun stuff I write about. I try to get it out on a weekly basis. You can subscribe at www.therealdarius.com. And with that said, look, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. I love you. Peace. We're out of here. See you guys on the next one.
She's my lover.